Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode. I am Michael Petro, and joining me in studio this week is Allan Wong. Allan Wong is a man of many talents. This man's toolbox is deep and holds many different skills, ladies and gentlemen. He's a producer, writer, director, actor, vocalist, but the reason we had him on was because he's the brand new festival manager for the Gimli Film Festival here in Interlake, Manitoba, where my lovely partner Shauna is from, where we spend a lot of our time. I'm a huge Interlake fan. The Gimli Film Festival is easily one of the best Canadian film festivals to have ever existed, no matter anywhere in any time, space, or universe. And he's the brand new manager of that film festival, so we get to talk about that. As always, we start with his career and how he got into everything. Found his way into film through being a vocalist. He holds a degree from the music of Brandon University and a certificate in the arts and cultural management from the University of Winnipeg as well. For 3 years, he was on the staff of Buffalo Gal Pictures, where he was fortunate to mentor under Manitoba industry veteran Phyllis Laing. Phyllis, you might remember me as your niece Kimmy's roommate. Hi, it's been a while. Anyways, Allan is also the vice president of Actor Manitoba and has his own film festival, one of the founding members of the Fascination Film Festival. We talk about all this stuff. We build up to his new year 2022 of being the festival manager at Gimli Film Festival and a bunch of other things. We talk about sound. He was in the sound department for a while. Allan, thanks so much for coming on the show. This was a great conversation. Thank you for educating me on some things I didn't know and rapping with me about some things I did. We're both big Westworld fans. We break everything just to talk about Westworld for 5 minutes. So you're going to have to put up with that. So that's who's on the show this week, ladies and gentlemen. If I know the housekeeping. If you are planning to attend Cult Movie Night at the Park Theater in Winnipeg on December 19th, we're going to be there. Tickets are unfortunately sold out. I know I said on the last episode that you could get tickets. I'm sorry. I was late to the party. Those tickets are sold out. So if you are going to that, if you're a huge diehard fan, we are going to be there. We're going to be podcasting from the lobby, the front of a building, and we'll be taking your questions. Do you think that Die Hard is a Christmas movie? We're going to talk about that. We might have some prizes for you. Martin's coming home for the holidays. He'll be there, so it's going to be a full cast affair. So that's that. That's only the real date I have for anything. Website. Let's not talk about it. If you haven't heard, we have a TikTok page. So if you want to see life behind the scenes, us doing dumb trends that we're way too old for and all that other fun shit, check us out on TikTok, the Reel Debaters. Follow us on all of our social media. If you want to support the show, to all you new people who've pressed play for the first time, first of all, thank you so much. If you're done with us and you want to support the show and continue on in the Reel Debater universe and mass debate with us weekly, there are 3 ways to do so. Subscribe. That's the free way. That's the most important way. I led with that. There's no money behind that. But if you want to empty some change out of your pockets or don a new sweater for the holiday season, we have a merch tab and we have a donation tab in the show notes. Buy us a coffee, $1, $3, or $5 donation, no more than that. We won't take it from you. Goes back into production costs, makes the show a little bit better. Hopefully it's better for you and everybody wins. And our prop shop, which is our merch stand, essentially. It's all virtual. It's done through Threadless. They have fantastic fucking clothing. I will be putting up a sale in the coming weeks. Because we don't care. It's just about making you guys look good in some fun new clothing. There's tights there. There's a skateboard there. Tons of merch. So if you're done and you're like, I've subscribed, how else do I carry on with my support? Those are the ways to do so. Each week we like to celebrate the top 10 places that are listening to the show that are supporting us. This week I got a shout out to India. I don't know who in India is listening to us, but that was crazy to see a spike come out of there. So thank you to our fans in India. Our top 10 list consists of number 10, Melita, Manitoba, number 9, Kelowna, British Columbia, followed by Burnaby, British Columbia. Our hearts go out to you out there, guys. I know that your roads are, it's crazy. Our love and sympathies go out to you. Toronto, Ontario, Mississauga, Ontario, Calgary, Alberta, back to Smithers, British Columbia, coming in the top 3, Ashburn, Virginia, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Winnipeg, Manitoba, coming in number 1. Again, we love it when you guys listen. Honestly, it's the best thing in our mundane, boring lives. So when you listen, we like to celebrate it. We like to give kudos where credit is due. It's not how you say that, but you know what I mean. So that's what this is. We love you all, but these are just the 10 places that spit our bullshit around the world, specifically in India. That's so crazy to me. I give you Allan Wong, brand new festival manager of the Gimli Film Fest for the 2022 season. This was a great conversation. I will cue the reel, and you enjoy the show.
Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel. Here is a motion picture film, 1,000 feet, 16,000 separate photographs.
Welcome everyone to the official space section of the charter.
What's the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Sir, you're out of order.
Out of order. I show you out of order.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Reel Debaters production. I am Michael Petro, and for the first time since I built a studio, we have our very first guest in it, instead of those crappy Zoom meetings you guys have had to put up with for almost 2 years. So I am here with Allan Wong. Allan Wong is a lot of different things. He started in music and worked his way into film. He's part of Actor. He's part of the Gimli Film Fest, and he met Rob at, where did you meet Rob again?
Rob
Strachan.
Oh yeah.
That's how this whole thing happened.
Your buddy Rob Strachan.
Yeah.
At Harvest Moon Festival.
Okay.
Which is I love, and it was the first music festival that's happened since the pandemic, and so it was such a great atmosphere of appreciation for science, and just appreciation for being able to gather together and enjoy music again. It was so nice.
I can't imagine. We're big festival goers in this house, and I've gone with Rob, and Rob's part of another group of us that do festivals, that do all the festivals and do all the events. And then he was like, yeah, I met Allan at Harvest Moon, and I was like, sweet. He was like, you want to do the show? And I was like, even better. Thank you for taking care of all of the legwork, that I didn't have to send an awkward email. I didn't have to come from a place of stranger. So that was really cool of that. How was Harvest Moon this year? Was it cold? Because that's usually my reason for not going to the send-off festival.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was the perfect temperature, typical for that time.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit windy. I remember waking up, because of the wind, it was blowing pretty strong against the tent. And there was maybe a tiny bit of rain, but not. But otherwise, it was beautiful. It was really nice. I mean,
awesome.
It's always a little bit chillier, and I don't mind that at all with camping, because the worst thing is when you're sweltering in your tent and you can't sleep.
Oh dear Lord! And I'm such a giant man child when it comes to my my creature comforts. So when my tent is hot and there's not a lovely I'm just a bear when I get up in the morning at a festival. So we have fans, we have generators. When we glamp, we don't camp anymore.
Oh, for sure. There's only a certain amount of discomfort that I will stand.
Exactly, right? To the point where you're like, this is interfering with my good time. So
yeah,
we got to meet in the middle. Anyway, so that's how you guys met. That's a great way for us to meet because it's a common ground. But you gave me some information about you. I kind of creeped you a little bit and looked around to kind of see what you've done. And here at the Reel Debaters, we like to start at the beginning, so we get the whole story of how you got into the creative arts, because you have a different route. And there's somebody else who I spoke with. The name is eluding me, that she was in the theater. I never keep my episode.
Sharon Bajer.
Sharon Bajer.
Yeah.
That's it.
Who is lovely, and
she was so lovely.
She's great.
And answered all my questions about what an intimacy coach does and how they're involved in the scenes. And I was like, this is the most adult conversation I've ever had about sex in my entire life. And it was very informative. So, but she came from the theater.
Well, that's how you take the awkwardness out of it, right?
It is true.
You take the awkwardness out of it by learning how to talk about it. And I think not a lot of people, people don't need to learn how to have these hard conversations about awkward topics like sex, like intimacy,
yes,
and a lot of other things, even like COVID, the pandemic and vaccines and people's attitudes towards. You got to learn to have hard conversations instead of just I don't know, shutting people down.
Yeah, that's the worst thing about that is not being able to. It's like, okay, this is already hard enough to talk about. Why do we have to make this harder?
Yeah,
but so she my point was that she came from the theater. You got into film by way of music, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Kind of so.
Yeah.
Start us there. Not the cold winter night where you were born, but start us where you started to get into the creative mindset and you wanted to perform in some way, shape, or form. What was music?
Well, I mean, I guess it does have to go back a little bit. I was basically raised by media. My parents both worked.
I sympathize with you, man.
They owned a restaurant, and I never had babysitters because we lived in a small town. They were immigrants, and so they bought a small town Chinese restaurant, and I basically was raised with the television, with much music, with the radio, like CDs, tapes, like renting videos and movies and watching TV. Like this was all, and reading books too, reading comics, reading whatever, like absorbing all the media that I could get my hands on, because you had to it's boring.
Real life is boring. I completely agree with you.
Things get boring. You had to entertain yourself. And so, by the way, for those of you who are listening now, I'm so proud to be the first guest in the studio.
Oh, thanks, man.
This house is like an homage to like pop culture. There's so much going on. It's such a conversation piece. Every room, like it's fantastic.
I need to take some pictures of it just to show people that, like, because I don't care about this room. I care about the rest of the house. Like those doodles you walked by.
Yeah,
that's Mr. Doodle Inspired, who's an Instagram dude, and all he does is just giant doodles. So Shauna bought his pen. She's like, I'm going to try that. So that's her tattoo on her neck on the wall out there. And then that tapestry, it's like a Star Wars tapestry. That's all her. I wish it was me, but it's her.
Well, I'm going to follow your Instagram after this for sure, because I'm sure it's going to be awesome. There's stories, I'm sure, to everything.
Oh man, she'll be home after we're done here. You feel free to ask her a couple questions about some of this random shit. Like there are some good ones. But anyways, so your parents, you grew up on media.
Yeah, and so, obviously I loved movies, I loved TV, I loved, comic books, but music, like I started loving, like, getting into music pretty early, and tried to like just discover my own tastes, and I fell in love with musical theater pretty hard in high school.
I did too.
I just loved like the story and the drama, but then wrapped in like amazing music, right? Amazing songs and
big performances.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
jazz hands.
Well, not so much.
Maybe we had different theater programs.
there was that side of it, but
Yeah.
that was like the things that like really got to me first were like, I don't know, the classics like Les Mis, Phantom of the Opera, like fairly dramatic, hard hitting stuff. Like
Andrew Lloyd Webber was a big deal for you as a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like Miss Saigon, even,
Yeah,
like,
I saw Miss Saigon in Toronto when I was a kid. That's still that helicopter on stage just never leaves me.
Yeah. So anyway, impactful and powerful, right? These pieces, and especially with the music. And so like when I started singing them, I really got into that and wanted formal training, because that's kind of what musical theater artists do.
Yeah.
And so I got kind of I guess I got kind of like influenced to apply for music school and go to university for music and do like a formal classical voice program, which in hindsight was not exactly what I should have done. I think if I wanted to do musical theater, I should have gone to a musical theater program, but I was stubborn and kind of like
what's
and
the
naive.
difference then? Like, because I would imagine that musical theater would include some classical, because musical theater is pulling from so many different genres.
Sure, yeah, for sure. I mean, like to a certain level, like the formal training, the classical training is beneficial for just efficient use of breath and voice.
Oh, okay.
But then when you get into it more advanced levels, it really does try to optimize your voice for that operatic kind of sound. And then you start studying opera, and you study like opera parts and like things that suit your voice type and that sort of thing, and you get really kind of like really into that world. And it's beyond musical theater, right? And they are separate worlds.
It's beyond Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah. And, it doesn't focus so much on the dancing or the acting.
Okay.
I had to kind of take that on the side myself, but it wasn't part of the program so much. And so, but, I had some really great experiences with it. I can't say that I regret it. It was good. I just felt like it didn't quite take me down the road that I wanted to go down initially, right? But whatever, it's
an avenue onto the highway thereof.
Yeah, exactly. Life's an adventure, so I just kind of had to roll with it.
And like anybody who's in anything creative has a few tools, right? They're like, you find out like, oh, XYZ can do XYZ, and you just don't stop thinking of them as an actor, but you're like, you also got some song and dance in you, like Hugh Jackman, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I came to him as Wolverine, but then I was like, really, this man is this is so
pretty
weird,
multi-talented.
Yeah, right. So you said opera. Was opera your chosen?
That's the thing. Like after university, I realized that's not really what I wanted to do. And so I took some time off. I went, I taught English in Japan for a couple of years, and I came back and I started teaching voice as a job, and then I started like auditioning for musical theater, and I did sing in the opera chorus for a little while, the Manitoba opera chorus, and I did some Gilbert and Sullivan, did some fringe shows, some musicals there. I did a Rainbow Stage show, and then I started working at Celebrations and did a couple of those shows. So, I kind of tried to like have as many experiences as I could, right?
Yeah,
Different kinds of experiences, and I was open to whatever. And that led me to, experimenting with film as well, film acting. And
it's only so long before the stage stops. Like, you're like, okay, I'm on the stage. What about the screen?
Yeah, and back then, the industry was pretty small.
When is this?
Winnipeg. This was like back in 2004 that I got into it. So 2004, 2005-ish, I started getting into it. Started like, I did like some background. I did like, some extra work, and was told, oh, okay, well,
I'm pedestrian 14.
Yeah, exactly. And that really opened my eyes to like, oh, this is a big deal. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of moving parts. And then since then, I've just, kept on learning, kept on growing. I moved out west. I went to Alberta for a year, and then Vancouver for 3 years. And while I was there, I had an agent in Alberta and agents in Vancouver as well. One for
officially, you are the most important person who's ever been in this room now, not just the first.
Well, I had some great experiences too. Like it was pretty amazing. Like this path has been good for me.
So you move out to the West. It seems the West is, because the Vancouver film industry or the BC film industry is, I always thought Toronto was kind of the mecca, but as I'm diving down this road, this chapter in my life of learning more about not just the things I love on film, but how the industry works, I've realized that Toronto seems more TV, but Vancouver seems more film. Is that a correct summarization?
As far as, okay, so from right now, I don't know how it used to be. It used to be Vancouver experienced a boom, like I think in the like late 80s, early 90s. It experienced like a huge boom and became like Hollywood of the North. But Toronto's always sort of been like the epicenter of film and TV production in Canada, and it still is. As far as volume wise, there's so many more productions going on there. Just like the number of projects and money going into it, right? So Vancouver is the second largest center for production. It does have a lot of film and it has some TV as well. I find that the types of projects filming in Vancouver are a little different than the types of projects going on in Toronto. And Toronto has a lot more independent stuff, I find, and a lot of the stuff in Vancouver is a lot more studio films, studio shows.
Yeah.
Like CW loves Vancouver, Like
no fucking kidding, do they? Like what? Batgirl, Supergirl, Flash. Daredevil, so many things are
Riverdale,
when
I moved out there, that was like during like the later years of Smallville, and so like one of my first gigs was like I was playing an office worker in the Daily Planet. And I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. I'm the Daily Planet, and then growing up with comic books too, like that was like an epitome of coolness.
It's off the fucking page now. Yeah. It's not just in your mind.
Yeah.
So where does music dovetail into film? What's that moment? What's that? Is that Daily Bugle or Daily Planet? Sorry, not Bugle. That's the wrong comic book. Where are you when that moment happens?
Well, I music always was a thing, and I kind of gravitated towards more contemporary styles by then, and so I was kind of doing my own thing as a singer-songwriter, just like, I did a lot of busking when I was in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Because you can actually make money busking.
Listen, in Winnipeg, Vancouver. We just don't need busking stations at the Forks. They need to be everywhere.
Well, anyways, it was a good mix. I was able to like kind of satisfy both sides, right? Like the strict like acting and performing in film. Did a little bit of theater. Did some busking, and that was a good time for 3 years. Then around 2010, 2011, I I just felt like I had hit a bit of a glass ceiling in terms of the kinds of roles that I was getting, and the types of the work I was doing. And I thought, well, my parents, kind of needed me back in Manitoba to be closer, and they were going through some stuff, and so I decided that I would come back to Manitoba to sort of retrain and focus on writing, directing, like producing, like stuff behind the camera, right? To kind of like, expand my skills and not just be a performer of other people's work.
Yeah. Make my own instead of you say this, do this.
Exactly.
Do what I want.
Yeah. I mean, that there's greatness in that too. I mean, like to be an amazing performer and build a career on that, that's fantastic, right? And a lot of people do that, and that's wonderful, But I just found that for me, there just wasn't enough of that out there for the kind of characters that I could play.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like, if we're being honest, I'm sure you were probably pigeonholed.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Asian gangster, a lot of doctor roles, accountant, like side characters, right? Like not a lot of like meatier, more dramatic roles, but
substance, things that have depth, right?
Exactly.
Not just a shower stall.
I mean, luckily things are changing.
Yeah,
there's a lot more of that now for diverse actors. But that's because at the time I think a lot of people felt the same way. We're like, okay, well, if you want to see these stories on screen, we have to go and make them.
Yeah. No, sadly, yes, you're right. I love stories of everybody. I think like when I get to hear about somebody else's folklore or somebody else's culture, I'm like, like put it on like the screen is the place for it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's exposed to everybody. There's screens in every home, right? So it's the universal tool to be like, this is how these people think. This is how this race thinks. This is how this culture was brought up. Like all of those things are made for the screen.
Yeah.
And I get sick and tired of seeing Chris Pine, Hemsworth, and Pratt just over and over and
Chris's.
over. The fucking Chris's. Like but it's the example, right? It's the stupid example of how many Chris's do we really need?
Well, it's
Anyways,
funny
yeah.
because, some people, I know that there's this attitude sometimes with people that they see something that, like with subtitles or from another country in another language, and they think, oh, that's not really for me, right? That's not really for me. I'm like, well, I don't know. What?
That's a lazy way of thinking.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like, and I grew up, watching all sorts of movies and TV shows. Like, obviously, my parents, had a steady stream of like Chinese content that their relatives would send them on VHS
That's
tapes.
awesome.
They would send
like
them
black market Asian cinema
yeah,
and stuff.
exactly.
That's
They would send them
amazing.
like whole TV series from China, like on videotapes, and they would just watch them. And so I kind of grew up with that. But I also watched like, I don't know, black movies and like whatever, Hollywood movies that would come all the time, like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but then also like Boys from the Hood and like all this stuff. And it's all about stories and culture, and I loved it all,
I agree with you. My dad and me were the running joke on the show is it's like I replaced my father with movies and kept searching for the perfect father in every movie I watched because like we just had like a rough childhood relationship, but he had this immense collection of VHS tapes from like subtitles, not like he was a film guy.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my education, was those like 4 big pull-out boxes underneath the flat screen that was so big the entertainment unit had to be custom built inside the home. And when they sold the home, they couldn't get it out. Like that was the problem my father had. We couldn't move our entertainment unit. I digress. So you come back to Manitoba, you end here, and you want to start getting behind the camera. Where are you learning this? Are you mentoring? Are you just filling any position on set? Like, how does that start here? Because I would imagine you go out west to get the career. You've got something. You come back home. Does it feel like you're starting all over again?
Yeah, there's inevitably a bit of a starting over that you have to do. But, I mean, coming back, some people did know me, like casting directors and stuff like that. But I did have to, like, make introductions and make headway into these other organizations. Like Film Training Manitoba was really great. Like, I took a bunch of workshops through them. The film group, the Winnipeg Film Group was really great.
They have a great kit to rent, right, from my understanding?
I became a member and started taking classes through there as well, and filmmaking classes. And, just trying to find opportunities to flex that muscle, and the more you work at it, the better you get, and the more connections you have. And how they say, like, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah,
I think it's both.
I agree.
You have to.
You gotta know something.
You got to know what you're doing, and then the people who know you will recognize that you know stuff, and then they'll hire you.
Yeah. The who you know thing. I mean, it gets you in the door, but when they yell action and you can't do shit, that's kind of where they also show you the door.
Yeah.
You lied to us. You tricked us.
There's a lot of that too in this industry. I remember. I won't tell you. I won't say what project.
We don't do names here.
I won't tell you what project it is, but there was definitely a feature film, like a larger budget feature film, that was made by a first-time director from Hollywood, and just was a disaster because he had way more money than he had skills.
Was that here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can talk about that off the show because I think I know who you're talking about. But anyways, and that's where it shows up. And when you're commanding 100 to 150 people, it's going to shine a lot more. What was the first thing you made when you got through all these classes? Because there's so many things on this list here, and I for the listener, we're going to bounce around everywhere today. There's going to be no fluidity, so you should just get used to it right now.
Well, I don't know. I would work on other people's stuff, obviously, to start off with, just kind of like see what I could do, and sound was something that was a skill that I transferred over from music, and so I already kind of knew like the basics of acoustics and the equipment and the gear that was related, right? So
can I shake my keys and you can tell me what note it is? Can you do that? I've heard that classically trained people.
I don't have perfect pitch. So
okay,
no.
That's very honest of you.
I mean, I've a decent relative pitch. I could probably sing an A for you right now.
If you. It is to me. I was in choir growing up, and I couldn't get pitch at all. I would be like to my left and to my right, and I was like, all right, I'll balance out between the two.
Whatever, you can cut that out. That doesn't really make it has any relevance to what we're talking about.
So sound. I had mentioned I kind of wanted to get into this because that is a natural progression, right? Having to be able to hear tune and sound, and it would be something that would interest you. I would imagine.
understanding sound. Like you don't realize actually how important it is until you hear bad sound. It can be so distracting.
Can you because you started there, can you watch a film or a show? Does your ear hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does it take you out of it? Is that something you have to kind of be like, you have to automatically reset yourself and be like, get rid of that. I know that was bad. I can go back to enjoying something. Or
Oh, well, I mean, like I still try to let myself enjoy whatever I'm watching, but if it's bad to a point that it does take me out of it, then you can't help. Like you can't help it. I think, and nobody can ignore it.
Yeah, well, unless you don't know, right? Like we were talking to Emily the other night, and we were talking about guns and real guns versus fake guns. Now that conversation has had such a untimely, horrible footnote involved in it. And she was like, I don't know the difference. I'm not the demographic. So to somebody who doesn't know the difference, that's the lucky person who doesn't, lose sight of the film or the show they're watching where they hear it. But how does sound, like how much are you capturing on set when you're doing this, and how much are you doing in ADR? Like where is, for me who doesn't know, and for the listener, like when you're doing a scene, is all the noise in that scene being picked up, or are you filling a lot of it after?
Yeah, so it depends what you're trying to get, I guess, right? If you're trying to get clean dialogue and then like layer on background noise, you'd want to do that in layers so you can control it, right? You always want to get dialogue clean with as little like distraction and as little other stuff going on as possible. But at the same time, you also want to create as little post work as possible. So a good sound technician will kind of like know the balance, right, of what needs to happen, and that's usually the basics are just like clean sound. If there's a fridge running in the background, unplug that thing. Like just get all that other stuff out that like, normally like people, if you're listening to something, they might not pick up on it, right? They might not pick up on like the vent, like
Totally.
quietly.
It's not
going
something
on
you're
in the
thinking of,
background.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but I don't know. Sound recorders have listen for different things.
Do you get to yell quiet on the set?
No, but I
Because I mean, it's probably the most important thing for you is quiet on the set.
yeah, no, that's the AD's job. But I do get to say, I do get to like stop the action and say like, we have an ambulance or there's like a plane or whatever,
Oh yeah, no kidding. That would be. Oh, how many? Does that happen a lot? Where like you're ready, everything's good to go, you roll, and then like a police car outside of the studio rolls by, and just not something you can.
Yeah, it happens, and you just have to wait.
Oh, can you fix that in post? Is that something you can scrub out?
You can add things, but you cannot take things out. It's really hard to take things out.
So that's why it's got to be as good as
Yeah.
it can be in the original cut.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, because I mean we're all sound. We're
Yeah.
we're sound and iPhone video. That's about the
Yeah.
majority of what we do here for production value. So yeah, if I hear the washer dryer in the background, it can sometimes get picked up in here. And for a podcast, it is all audio. You don't have any room to hide shit with beautiful things going on in the background. How long did you sound for? Or do you still do it?
I still do it up until last year, up until the pandemic, actually.
Really?
So up until the pandemic, the thing that I was doing right before everything got shut down, I was doing sound for a reality show that was filming in Gimli.
Is that Ice Vikings?
Yeah,
Do you know Steve Taylor?
Steve Taylor.
I think he worked. He's a friend of mine. He's been on the show a couple times. We call him Marbles because he's not allowed to. He can't enunciate.
What does he do?
He's AD, assistant AD. He's done production office. He works a lot with Farpoint. He's doing Cruise Ship Killers. I think he just finished Cruise Ship Killers.
Okay.
So in that I know he's just done reality. So I figured maybe you two ran into each other. But that Ice Viking show,
I maybe have met him at some point, but it's hard for me to remember.
it's like asking, you hear somebody's from Canada and you're like, do you know my cousin Joe?
Yeah. I mean, because I didn't spend a lot of time in the office. It was mostly just on site in Gimli.
Okay.
And I wasn't the original sound recorder. Kevin Bacon is the original sound
Shut
recorder.
up. Are you
I'm talking
serious?
about Kevin Bacon.
Did we just get 1 degree from Kevin Bacon? Isn't there an actual Kevin Bacon in Winnipeg?
Oh, yeah. He's awesome. His name's Kevin Bacon. He's a sound guy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I have a guy at my day job. His name's Troy McClure.
Nice.
And I want to send him an email and be like, "Are you from such emails as?" But I just never have. I don't have a relationship with him. But okay, so what's it like? Because I love ice fishing. Shauna's from the Interlake. Her family's from Arborg, so we're out there all the time. So what's it like working on Ice Vikings? Because that show looks fucking cool.
It was pretty wild, actually. Like every day we would basically follow a pair of ice fishermen out onto the lake. We'd ride in their bombardier, which is like this tank.
Oh, I see them all the time out there hauling ice shacks, man.
Which, if you've never been in one or seen it, it's pretty funny to see. Like you don't see them very often, and we roll out there in this bombardier or on snowmobiles, and just follow them on their day. And they basically just go and either they're dropping nets or they're pulling nets up, and all this fish is coming out of the net, and they're just like talking about their day, and about the conditions on the lake. And sometimes it gets crazy because when in the wintertime there's a crack. There's a break in the lake, right?
There is.
Between like the really deep water and the shore. And, so navigating this crack in and out is kind of like the excitement for the day, because you never know how soft the ice is going to be at that crack or how, and this was at the end of the season too. And so that was you have to like basically, find a good solid section and just like book it, over this crack.
I've been on that ice many times. I've heard it crack once underneath me, and I had to clean my pants. Like, it was the weirdest feeling. Because, like, when we get out there and Shauna's dad's just, like, hauling ass in the truck, I'm like, slow down. Like, you can't go this hard on ice to me. But he's like, it's, like, only 20 feet deep. I'm like, yeah, the truck's 9. We're going to drown. Like, like, the fucking math is not in our favor here. But I've seen the crack you're talking about. Is it that, like, long diagonal one that it just,
It's a huge ridge, and depending on the conditions of the water and the time of the year, it can either be like fairly like mild, or it can grow to like be pushed up so that it creates
Yes.
like a little like over your head, kind of like
Yes.
a
The
couple meters
tectonic
tall.
plates have
Yeah,
shifted.
exactly.
And you're fucking folding over each other.
Yeah, no, it's super cool.
Did
but
you
yeah.
did you get any fish? Did they give you guys fish when you left?
Oh, I bought fish.
You bought fish.
I bought fish off of them. Yeah, I wouldn't be so bold as to ask for fish for free because they work hard for that fish.
I would.
They deserve.
Yeah,
they deserve it.
So like, what? So you get up? Are you out there at the crack of dawn with them, or are you guys?
Yeah, it's pretty early. We'd head out there at like dawn, and then our day would be done by like 3.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 or 4. We'd be like back at the hotel and just like exhausted because like a full day out on the lake is kind of unforgiving, right? Because you have no shelter really, except for like in the bombardier, which once it's full of fish, you can't really comfortably, sit.
You're not the priority.
Exactly. So you're just like in the sun all day if it's sunny, and it's like, or if it's windy, you're just like being battered by the wind all day. So which also creates challenges for sound.
Is your gear freezing too? Like, how do you guys keep shit? Like batteries freeze.
Yeah. Well, batteries, you have to basically monitor the batteries a lot. But then the gear is okay. It comes in like a pack that's pretty insulated, and so but it does get cold, like especially cables. Cables will cut out and be not so great and in the extreme cold. So that's an issue.
So do you have like a zhuzh for sound? Like, I'll ask you this. Do you think Christopher Nolan deserves Oscars for sound engineering? Because I sure as fuck don't. Even though, and now you're in sound, you're a professional. So please explain to me how "I Was Lost in the Darkness" gets a fucking sound award, because you can't understand Bane.
Yeah. That's a controversial topic, I think.
Yeah.
Amongst sound.
Give me your hot take.
Amongst sound aficionados. Personally, I like being able to understand.
Right?
Personally, I like being able to understand everything that's being said. There's got to be a way to do it and still capture that the atmosphere, the chaos that's going on, like with all the other sound that's happening, like explosions and whatever machine noise and that sort of thing. But and still be able to, hear what the guy's saying.
I was lost in the darkness. What? I was lost in the darkness. One more time, Tom. I was lost. We fix the map. Like, it just was so bad. Like, Dunkirk had good sound for, like, how you felt. Like, it was a very presence. It's a very sound presence. Like, the plane and the bombs and the run. Like, all of those things. But his actual quality, like, it was like you gave Bane a mouthpiece in The Dark Knight, and now you gave him a radio operator's patch over his face, and like Tom Hardy's not allowed to speak in a Christopher Nolan film, it seems, because they just cover the guy's damn face, and then you rely on the subtitles, which is fine. But I'm ranting. Do you like Foley? Did you play in any of that stuff too? Or
no, that's a whole other field that is the kind of like the purview of post production, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, that I didn't deal with any of that, but it looks really cool. Like, I think that'd be super fun to do Foley.
Like Broken Bones is celery, from what I've seen.
Yeah, for sure. But you just have to have a studio. You can have a post-production studio here, and then you could set that up for you. Because I don't think there is any place that does Foley in Winnipeg. So if you kind of cornered that market, that'd be a pretty decent business, I think. Could
I do it in a room like this?
Maybe.
Can I be a podcaster and a Foley artist? Put my 1,000 hours in. No. Okay. Thank you for giving me that perspective, because I've always been like, I don't know why this guy gets awards for his sound, because it's just not proper.
Well, it's definitely a point of debate, a heated debate amongst the sound world.
Is there somebody in the sound world that, like, is there Spielberg in the sound world? Is there? No,
that's a good question. I know locally who are really good, but
besides Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, exactly. I know Leon Johnson has been the pioneer of sound in Manitoba. He worked on like a lot of like early IMAX films.
Oh, really?
And so like he's been all over the place with IMAX, like doing like, in the middle of the safari with gazelle like running past him, like, and him just like standing in the field, you're recording the gazelle running past. He tells these stories, right? It's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, he's pretty awesome.
What are some of your tools? What are two questions? What are the tools that you use, say, for Ice Vikings, and what's the weirdest sound you've had to capture?
That's a good question. For Ice Vikings, I was basically a one man department.
Okay.
And so you rely a lot on lavs for that one because you're outdoors a lot, and there's a lot of
for the listener who doesn't know what a lav is.
Yeah, so like the little lapel mic that you would hide, so like in the jacket or the clothing of.
How's he
the
making
person.
sound? There's no mic on him. That mic, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's sheltered from the wind and sheltered from other noises and that sort of thing, because it really only picks up the voice because it's right by
Sure.
by your mouth. And we did a little bit of booming, but it was mostly the lapel mic because it was windy all the time and you're outside all the time and there's no shelter. And so it's on a film or a TV show, you can control the environment a lot more than, like, for example, a documentary or a reality show like that, where you're just in the environment, you're just out there and you have to kind of deal with what you get, right? So
That's totally the roll of the dice. You mentioned, I want to flip-flop here for a minute. You've also done the office side of things. And for the day job that I have, a lot of my interactions with you guys in the world of, I don't share this information freely just because I don't want stalkers, because I think it's a humble brag, I'm not that important. But I just don't talk about it that much, but let's be honest, I do work proxy to you guys, and you're always so gracious to let me use my work connections to talk to you in that regard, so thank you. That being said, though, the production side of things is my exposure. People don't, like, the sexy positions, the ones that we all know about, the ones that get the Oscars.
right.
Those are what the layman or the general knowledge person knows. But there is a group of people who are in an office planning everything, trying to get it all organized and flowing and marching one by one perfectly. So you've done both sides. What's production in the office like?
Well, it's definitely not as dynamic as working on set, because you're basically in an office all day, and a lot of it is communication. A lot of it is information, the dissemination of information to make sure that people know what they're doing.
For sure.
Like you said, not sexy.
No, it's not. Like, it's,
people fell asleep once I said dissemination of information.
We've lost everybody. Come back when we get back to ACTRA. No, so like but everybody I talk to has that sense of urgency in their voice, a slight sense of panic, and just get it the fuck done mentality. And are those three qualities that, if you want to work in a film office, you might
pretty
need?
much. I mean, like, film production it's a balancing act between doing things as best you can, but also squeezing every drop out of that stone, right? And the stone being like
the budget
and the people who are working for you, right? And so, like, even though the work itself might be enough for like a team of 10 people, you've got 3, and so you just have to deal with that. I was an assistant production coordinator for a little while. I was a production coordinator for a little while.
I'm very surprised we've never crossed paths in the daytime.
It was a very short while because there's a certain type of person who really thrives in that environment, and I was not one.
No,
not in that environment. Yeah,
you don't strike me as somebody who likes to push paper. You strike me as somebody, from what little interaction we've had, you like to make. You like to pretend. You like to create. I
do like to create, but I also like, there's a bit of creativity in the job that I have now, which is really great. And even though there is a lot of paper pushing as well, it's a mix, right, of creativity and that, because it's the organization needs to happen for things to get done.
I want to get into that, the bulk of ACTRA in the Gimli Film Festival, because I tried to talk to Aaron Aaron was like my first arrow in my quiver, so to speak. I went after him because he used to be my landlord when I lived on Stradbrook. And we had comings and goings and was a super solid dude. And then I found out that he was working at Gimli Film Fest. And as soon as we started this podcast, it was right before pandemic. And I was like, I want to get the history. I want to talk about the festival this year. I want to do all these things. And then boom, right? And I was like, everybody has priorities. I'm just going to lay off and the 6 idiots of us on the show, we'll do our own thing. But what are you doing before we get there? What are you doing in the office? Like, what are some of your roles? What are you pushing paper towards? Are you booking tickets? Are you buying visas? Are you orchestrating like sets and locations? Like, what is an assistant production manager doing? Are you overseeing all the people who are doing that, or are you like?
Yeah. So, okay. So it's just in the production office. There's so much that needs to be done, right? It's all the organizing of the schedule, lining up. Logistically, all the different kind of like things that need to come together, like all the vendors. They work closely with accounting to make sure all the contractors and all the crew are, have their paperwork in and sign their contracts and make sure all that stuff is set up for them to be paid. Then there's also, once cameras are rolling, it's sort of like the day-to-day communication between like what actors are playing that day, who's needed on set that day, what location they're at, like it's communicating all that information.
You're the maestro of the people.
Yeah, I mean, like you answer to the production manager. Production manager is really like kind of like the head of that department, right? And their job really is to just make sure everything runs smoothly, and they're the communication between like the producers and the directors and the crew and the actors. Like, so all these different elements have to kind of be able to, I don't know, work together, right?
Yeah, and sing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
find the same pitch.
It's very organizational, very sexy.
I mean, like, it's the only thing I know, so I've always been like, man, it seems like they drive the boat a lot, right? Like, when it comes to making sure things don't get, because if you left everything to the people on set, I think you'd like quadruple your budget, because they'd just be like, let's play with all the toys and do all the things. So there's that happy medium of like, this is where all the organization's coming from, and what spits out at the other end is this lovely thing that you get to watch and enjoy and be a part of.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a track too to producing, right?
Is it? Okay.
Like, if you want to learn producing and haven't gone to producing school or whatever, there isn't really a producing school. It's mostly like business, finances, and connections, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're, starting in the production office, if you work your way up to becoming a production manager, then you're kind of on the inside circle with producers, right? And you're working closely with them, and then you can make that transition.
So that's the next phase is executive, co-producer, producer, line producer, all those.
Well, exactly. Yeah, line producer. I'd see people go from production manager to line producer to like producer, right? And executive producers, I mean, like they're just the ones that own the company, really.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of like. They're the money, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, money and leadership, and they don't necessarily get involved in the weeds so much, but I don't know, some do.
Yeah,
some do. It depends on the project.
I've started to pay attention more to the credits than I did before. Before the show, I was like, take me away, right?
Yeah.
I want to leave boring world and I want to go to fake world, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, who made fake world? How did they make fake world?
Yeah.
I like the sausage being made more now that I've been so proxy to you guys. I still love watching dumb, dark, weird, twisted shit. Don't get me wrong. I will. I'm the shill on the show. Yeah. I don't dislike anything. I like everything, or I'll try to find a reason to like everything.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like when you start to peel back the curtain and you look at who's behind the curtain, right? Like you realize it's not just one person. There's the whole industry is there, and it's pretty complicated. There's the production side of industry, but then there's also the distribution side, like broadcasters and distributors and studios, even like in the theater companies, and then the exhibition side, which is where festivals lie.
That's a great transition. I couldn't even come up with one better. So the reason
Rob reached out to me was he said that at this point in your life, you're curating. I imagine you to be a gallery curator, and you're taking moving pictures and curating them in a way because you are now. What's your role at the Gimli Film Festival?
I don't want to take away any. I don't want to take away from actual curators.
Okay, no, that's my word, everybody, not his.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I do have a hand in sort of, I would say, shaping the theme of the festival and shaping the festival in general. But we do have a programming staff basically that will help to. And programming committee that will help to essentially choose and curate the actual films that are being shown. So I basically took over for Aaron Zegers as the director, the festival director.
Shout out to Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron's great. He's fantastic. He's been such a great help and nothing but supportive of this transition. And he's gonna go off and do amazing things, I'm sure. So he's super capable, and he's teaching at Red River part-time now, and he's got also like a film in the works as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he creates next. But so as stepping into this role, essentially what I'm doing right now is lining up, our financing, our funds for the year, right? So it's a lot of grant writing. It's a lot of planning, like figuring out what are we going to do next year for the festival, what that budget will be, and breaking down the costs and expenses and how we're going to pay for things, right? And then also starting to put together the programming team, right? For next year, because those are all just kind of contracts, and there's no guarantee that programmer will come back next year, depending on what their life situation is like, right?
Yeah.
So, but then it's also communicating with the board and what else? Marketing, planning, strategizing our marketing. We're going through a little bit of, I'll give you a little secret there. We're doing a bit of a rebrand this year.
Ooh,
but I can't
that's fine.
divulge any more than that until we actually announce it, right? So
leave the red herring out there, man. Get everybody hooked. Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I know my world of film. The one thing that I should consume more of is animation, because I've found that there's some stories there that I'm just like, wow, I really wish I'd been here. I wish I'd committed to this earlier, because it's cartoons just make me feel they're juvenile, and the arrogant asshole in me is like, I'm better than that. But then I find a great story and I'm like, fuck, what it missed me altogether. So animation's one, but independent and film for a more, I wouldn't say artistic, but more of a storytelling and less about profit. The world of film that isn't about blockbusters and budgets and opening weekends, that world of film. And Ian Bawa is one of the guys who's on the show. And Ian Bawa is my connection to it. I've gotten better only because of involving a guy who makes shorts and makes independence and being around that. And I love it. And I see a whole different eye in it. So first of all, to the person who doesn't understand what a film festival is, it's not a music festival in the same sense where you go and you're entertained by musicians, and it's curated in a way that's a little bit different. So what's the point of a festival, I guess, first of all? Because then I want to get into the story of Gimli after.
Well, there's a few different ways you could approach a film festival. Some film festivals are, strictly for sort of like the entertainment side. They program maybe like very, very sort of like commercially viable films, or very like niche films to a certain demographic, like Fantasia, right? In Montreal, it's all like sci-fi genre films,
Very niche.
Yeah, exactly. Sci-fi, fantasy, anime. It's great. Like, it's super popular. But that's kind of like their niche, right? And then you have film festivals like the Toronto International Film Festival or Cannes or whatever, where
Tribeca.
Exactly, like the big premier film festivals where even studio pictures try to get sort of like a premiere at that festival to generate buzz.
Yeah.
But it's usually going to be...
I follow award season pretty fucking closely. I'm like, if it does well at TIFF, I know where it's going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's got to that point with those premier film festivals that their marketing is just so on point, and like the critical acclaim that comes from playing at a festival like that is definitely like worth something to the industry at large, right? And I think all festivals sort of like try to do that in a way. And there are different tiers of festivals, different levels of festivals, ones that kind of just cater to the community, or ones that like focus more on the market, like trying to create networking opportunities and business opportunities for the filmmakers, right? So Gimli kind of sits a little bit in the middle of all of those because it is like a rural film festival. It's a little bit separated from the market, but because of its size and like how big it's grown, Manitoba has really kind of embraced it and made it its big festival, right? Like every big city in Canada seems to have its own like festival, right? Like the Vancouver International Film Festival, Calgary, Edmonton, they all
Banff,
have these film
Toronto,
festivals.
yeah.
So Gimli is Manitoba's film festival.
Which is so great because it's like, and I mean, I'm from here, but like, screw you, Winnipeg. It's going to be Gimli. It's going to be out here. It's not going to be in the epicenter.
It's unique, right?
It's very well. You know what it is? It's Sundance, right?
Yeah.
It's location unique. Sundance, top of a mountain. We've got, or is it top? No, it's in Colorado. Sorry, I shouldn't say it.
It's in Utah.
It's in Utah?
Sundance is in Utah, yeah.
Why do I always think it's in Colorado?
What is it? There's something else in Colorado. I forget.
Good, I'm
there's
confusing
like the Vail. I think there's the Vail Film Festival. That's in Colorado. But like, if you compare with other like interesting festivals in Canada, like Whistler is a great example, right?
Okay, yeah,
or
yeah.
Banff.
Yeah.
Banff World Media Festival, right? And that's kind of more focused on the market and about TV and about like, that kind of thing. But Whistler Film Festival is a good because it's a destination place. It's a tourist destination, and it also happens to have like, this really cool film festival.
Yeah, right? And you get two birds, one stone. Mountaintop, great film one night.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did the Gimli, because I love it. I think it's one of the, like, because we're so anchored in the Interlake in this house, the Icelandic Festival, Gimli Film Festival, Gimli in general, like the Chicken Chef in Gimli is like a go-to destination, bar none. Deep fried mushrooms, shout out to Gimli Chicken Chef every fucking time. But how did it start out there? Why there? Why not? Like,
I don't know like a lot of details of when of how it started. I just know that in 2001 they did their first festival out there, which basically just started off as like a screening on the beach. They set up a
floaty screen, or just
well, it's not floating. I mean, it's
Okay.
set up in the water.
Okay,
And so it looks like it's floating, but then the screen itself is definitely
movie magic. I was trying-
anchored in the sand.
okay.
Anyways, and they wanted to like show some Icelandic films, right? Because of their Icelandic
Yeah.
background and
Yeah,
their
yeah.
heritage, and so it's just grown from there. It's become, and props to Leona Johnson, who is the festival director before Aaron, and Aaron Zegers, obviously, who is been the festival director for the past like 4 years. They've really grown it to a point where it is not just about Icelandic films, but obviously a respected like arts festival, right?
Yeah.
And so you get submissions from all over the world, and the curation of it and the juries of it, and even like the awarding of prizes, like the festival awards and stuff like that, is pretty on par with like sort of like the standard of what a film festival should be when it comes to like critically selecting and looking at film and media with a critical eye and an artistic eye.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're going here because I've always like you go to one where you're celebrating anime, right? And that probably isn't, you're not flipping through the bifocals to, really look at it. But how do you choose with this critical eye? Like, do you go with a theme? Do you does a theme start by accident and then you play off of that? Do you just take everything in and watch it all and then figure it out? Like, how does a festival make up its mind on what it shows and what it doesn't show?
Well, I think like art, it evolves over time, right? So
Yes.
it changes every year. With
Now it's
like,
being very questioned.
yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But it's so you have all these films and different stories, and it's fantastic because different people will have different visions for the kind of story they want to tell, right? So what one of the criteria is for our juries to program is is it relevant right now?
Okay.
Are you talking? Is it something that is of the times, and does it bring like a new perspective to it? Like say you're talking about the Holocaust, right?
Okay.
Is it obviously the Holocaust is something that's been talked about for years, generations, and is it a new perspective on the Holocaust? Like how is that relevant, right? And then also obviously production quality, right? Like you also have to think, is it good enough in technically to keep you interested, keep you like focused on the message that it's trying to send. I mean, I'm talking about just very generally, like what makes a good, festival film. But and generally these are films by filmmakers, or they might have distribution companies attached to them, but they're essentially independent. Like they're not coming from, Disney or Fox.
This isn't Anna Purina or A24. These aren't the independent art house studios that have a backing and an audience and money. These are from independent, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, like even A24 though, I mean, like they still, that's just a distribution house. I wouldn't say that's a studio. And so and in a lot of ways that they also curate the types of films that they choose to represent.
Yes. Okay. Maybe that's why I'm mistaking it, because it is a very there's something there, right? Like when you look at a Avengers film, you're like, nah, that's Kevin Feige. I can see it all day long, right? Just like with them, you can see, bet you that's A24, right? You can kind of
there's
if you're looking at it close enough, you can see it a little bit.
Yeah, and I think actually that's a good sign of like a smart distribution company, because they will craft an aura. They will craft like a feel for them, right? Like an image of their label that represents a feel, rather than just like a gamut of whatever is going to make the money.
You get lost in it. Like you want to be able to stand out and then stand next to it and be known for that, as opposed to it's all just lost in the muddied waters.
Yeah, exactly.
When what drew you to this? Because we've talked about, like, you're on stage, opera singer, sound, in front of the camera acting, you had an agent, like all of these things, and then jumping to this side of film.
Yeah.
Was that pandemic related too, or was that something that you were like, I want to try something new?
It was, I mean, and it wasn't, because I've always sort of like gravitated towards, my brain's always been split between two sides, like the performing side, but then also like sort of like the facilitation side.
Exhibition?
Yeah, exhibition. Like I was a stage manager for a little while. Like I coordinated events. I worked with the Asian Heritage Society. I put on concerts and other things like independently, right?
Okay.
Just on my own, on my own time. I worked for I volunteered for Folk Fest before, as a stage manager and as a, helping to like kind of coordinate stuff. So that organization side of me is there, and it's something that I can do, and I feel like I can do it well. So somebody has to do it.
Yeah, no, totally. I get it. I just, we're talking about the production side not being sexy, but I feel like sitting there and having all of these amazing pieces of art come flying at you and then having to sift through them all. I'm too soft of a person. I'd feel bad for cutting anybody out. I'd be like, put them all on the screen. Like to have stuff sent to you from, I'm sure, like Scandinavia or Australia or Russia or South America or Africa. Like, there's just so much coming at me.
Yeah.
I would just get lost in the weeds.
Yeah,
man.
the programming team, they do a good job, and I don't envy their job of like having to sift through it all, but it is part of the job, and it is interesting. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like it's fantastic to just watch what other people are doing, right? Like you learn so much that way. As a filmmaker, you learn so much by watching other people's work, right? And so the more variety of stuff you can see, if you're not just watching Wes Anderson movies, you get a sense for like the range of what is out there and what's possible, right?
Yeah. There's also nothing wrong with just watching Wes Anderson.
No, that's true. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Wes Anderson movies.
What's your favorite one?
So far,
I feel the Wes Anderson movie is just like your taste in shoes. Like it says a lot about where you're going and where you've been.
To be honest, I think my favorite it's still the Royal Tenenbaums.
That's fine. That's a shot out of a cannon for him for his career. Like, it's just so prominent.
It's what made me love him, and then like everything else has been fantastic that he's done. I feel, in its own way. But that one still has such a soft spot in my heart. Just
I get it. Like I'm Darjeeling Limited all day long, and then a close, like very narrow second is Life Aquatic. Like
Life Aquatic is great.
Depending on where I am in life, it's either like it's one or the other, and both of them being Bill Murray. It's just it's a hard. I love the shorts that he did. Like how he did a short in front of Darjeeling Limited with just Schwartzman and Portman. When you went to the theater, you actually got that short before the movie actually played.
Right. I forgot about that.
And they have it in the DVD in the special features, but it's not something a lot of people know about, because if they didn't catch it in the theater, you wouldn't have gotten that. And just he makes worlds. He doesn't make movies. He makes a world.
Yeah.
And it's like down to color and shape and style and art deck. There's just so much that goes into a set of a Wes Anderson film.
Yeah.
Like, where do you find that stuff? Being a set dresser for a Wes Anderson film, my God, the missions he probably sends you on.
Yeah, and just like I just love the frames. Every frame is like a painting.
Yes.
That's what that's what you kind of learn in cinematography school, right? Like you try to do that. I mean, like if you've, and a lot of, granted, a lot of cinematographers do that. If you look at, I don't know if you've seen the new Dune.
I have. We're supposedly tomorrow, possibly Monday. That's where I'm at.
Well, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, like and even like with Blade Runner,
Villeneuve is an auteur. I think. I don't think he's a different kind of sci-fi filmmaker.
It's just so like it's every frame is just so
It's
it matters.
purposeful.
Yeah, exactly. It all matters, and it's just it's great visual storytelling, and so that's what I appreciate, and and that's what you should aim for. You should strive for that kind of that level of visual storytelling as a filmmaker, and so that's kind of what we also something that we look for in the programming. Is does it meet these criteria, right? Does it the story, the concept, the production, but like also just overall feel? Does it give you a feeling of something unique?
Yeah, what does it evoke?
Yeah.
No, I love being robbed of all my emotion and something taking something from me and replacing something inside of me, pain or laughter or hurt or something. I love when a film takes something from me and I walk away, as opposed and it's fun. It's also fun to watch lighthearted, easy dick and fart jokes, right? Like there's something to be said for both. But
yeah, of course.
The job of the dick and fart jokes is just to make you laugh. The job of the properly placed lighting and camera and story and words, that's to create a memory.
And also, there's something to be said for going into a movie and not really knowing what you're going to get out of it too. And I think that's something that the festivals do really well, is because they show these more obscure movies, or maybe ones that are like just like at the cusp of breaking into like Moonlighting.
Yeah.
Or Moonlight. What was it? Yeah.
Moonlight. Yeah.
Moonlight.
Rashar Ali. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that was kind of like a festival darling before it garnered so much attention that it actually, had a festival run, and then obviously won the Oscar that year. And it was just like, if you can see a movie like that at a festival before it really like hits the mass,
before it gets ruined, before it's talked about too much.
Well, yeah, exactly. Before it hits the critical mass of the public sphere, right? Then you're kind of like, oh, that was something special that I just watched.
I remember. I know the feeling you're talking about, because I remember somebody was like, there's this band and they're called Jimmy Eat World, and I found them in high school, and nobody else knew about them. And when you get to be a part of that club, the before club,
you're ahead of the bell curve.
Yeah,
of Jimmy Eat World,
right?
That's a great story.
Like that, but it was, and everybody's like, "Oh man, the middle's like months later," and I was like, "Oh come on!" Like, and I felt so robbed. I was like, "Stop taking this valued thing from me," because it was a secret before. So I
must be a little bit older than you, because I feel the same way. But it was about Belle Biv DeVoe.
Sure, yeah. It is what it is, but yeah, it's just your thing. So I imagine a festival's full of so many other people's things that so few people get to experience. There's a magic in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you ever been at a festival and been like, that's going places?
Oh yeah, For sure. For sure. I mean, like, I remember the feeling. Like, I've been to so many. I've seen so many things that, like, you know, it's hard to pinpoint like a specific project. But it's easier I think it's easier for music, because those artists that you see at a festival that really stand out, if they do go somewhere, then they're always in your mind, right? The public's consciousness, right? Whereas movies will hit and then they'll go away, and they'll be replaced by new movies, you know. But, like, for example, I remember hearing William Prince for the first time.
Okay, yeah, fantastic artist.
Yeah, and the first time I heard him, I can't remember what year it was. It was like, I want to say 2015, 2016.
Oh wow,
something
so
like
way
that.
before.
Yeah, he was. I was teching, kind of like the opening, kind of a announcement launch thing for a theater company, for theater projects, Manitoba, at Le Garage in St. Boniface.
Yeah.
And then after that was over, it was around 10 o'clock, 10:30. They had William Prince on. And so as I'm, like, tearing down my gear and, like, kind of wrapping up, and we're kind of, like, you know, straggling to leave, there's a few of us still there. He starts playing, and I'm just like, my head just cranks. Like, what?
Like a record stop,
Like,
right?
hearing this guy's amazing voice, right? And there was nobody there for him. There was nobody there. It was all our people that we were all leaving, but there was nobody there for him. And I ended up staying for a while because I was like, this is something else, you know. Like, his voice was immediately magnetic and had a quality that I was like, shit. Well,
you got your hooks in me.
He's like the next Johnny Cash. I don't know. Like, he was so good.
I totally get it, and that's I think like festivals are a target-rich environment for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because you have like some people, and then their job is to find those diamonds in the rough, I guess, you know.
Diamonds in the rough. There's some Aladdin for you right there.
Yeah.
So how long you been with Gimli so far?
Well, I just started in January,
Okay.
and I just took over as the executive director this month. So
you guys are already
been,
planning for 2022?
We are. Yeah.
Is it something? Can you say that it's an in-person thing?
Yeah, I can tell you we're planning for an in-person event.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
We've had 2 years of virtual, and so we're definitely wanting to get back to in-person, like the beach screenings and everything. It's been such a those events are such a memorable thing for people who spend their summers out in that area, for cottagers or even just the community at large. They thrive off of it and they love it. So
I'd imagine a rising tide raises all ships. No pun intended, because it's Gimli. But like, you know,
touche.
Yeah. It's only when I get warmed up. I can't do that off the bench. But like, like the businesses do well. It becomes a mecca. There's a sense of community. People are exposed to new things. Like, it just checks so many good boxes. How many different places do you show films there? Like, how many different venues are there? Is it 6, 7?
There's four venues besides the beach.
Okay.
But like 4 like sort of like main indoor venues, and we use the Gimli Theater obviously as our main indoor venue.
Yeah.
There's a Lady Lake Theater, which is like a small room that's kind of like off of the
Is it off Broadway?
it's off of the Icelandic Heritage Museum.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's sort of, they use it for their presentations as well.
Sure.
But you know, for our festival. And then there's a couple of churches. There's the Aspire Theater, which is right beside the Gimli Theater. It's the old Unitarian church. And then we use also the Lutheran church, which is sort of a bigger, more modern church. But they've always been very supportive of the festival as well. So yeah, those are our venues.
I can't wait. We need to talk after about, because I will bring my gear out there, and I will, like, anybody who's got a film
that'd be
there.
Awesome.
Like, if anybody who's got a film there that they want to talk about, I will set this up and I will wait for people to sit down and let them talk to me about it.
That'd be fantastic. We should definitely do that as like on stage somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did Comic-Con. We just did we had a panel at Comic-Con. It was.
Was Ian in that?
Yes, he was.
Okay, he was telling me about it.
Honestly,
that's great.
like, dude, it's one of the most magical moments, because we started this thing and it's funny to us.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get any sort of reception beyond downloads,
Yeah.
beyond whatever. So we were like, is this funny elsewhere, or is it just funny in four square walls? And then when we did it, and we did it in front of the audience that it was intended for, and the audience received it, and the coolest moment is when I raised my hand and I went, if anybody would like to talk about how to podcast, we're more than happy to answer any questions. And then someone raised their hand, and I was like, sweet, I'm going to have one question. This is going to be awesome, right? Because it's our first time. And they're like, about Camp Hulk. And immediately when they went back to what we were talking about and didn't give a flying fuck about what we know, I went, we've got you. This works. We just
Yeah.
have to figure out what audience it works in front of.
Yeah.
So we want to take this thing as far as it can go when it comes to public, so we can get the guys out to a film festival and curate something for the festival, talk to people. Like, I would love to spend 4 days out there because I'm only 20 minutes away when I go see the family.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll talk about
We'll,
this. For sure.
we'll talk.
So, you'd mentioned, I know you're with ACTRA. What do you do with ACTRA? Because I really want to get on the fascination, because I heard about that this year, and I'm always so like timid around festivals because it's the people who are doing it for the sake of art, and I'm like, I'm out of my element, Donnie. So like I'm always a little skittish around that, but at the same time, I want to know about fascination.
No, you don't need to be. You don't need to be skittish about anything. You don't feel like, art is for everybody. It's trying to, the thing about making art exclusive and inaccessible. I think that's goes against sort of like what it is meant to be. It's art's for the people. So whatever, however you feel about it or your perceptions of it, get rid of them.
Okay, perfect. I'll check them at the fucking door. I'm glad you said that, because until then it would just be my voice inside my head.
No,
being
it's
like,
just about celebrating, man. It's just about celebrating ideas, it's creativity, the skills and work of the community. Like that's all it is, really. It's just celebrating that. Yeah.
no,
I can't really put it anywhere. I can't really add more to it, because that would be taking away from the core message, right? It's just celebrating ideas and celebrating creativity. That's it.
I got to put that up here in here somewhere. Celebrating ideas, just to remind me, just to not get in my own head. So, how long have you? We're going to end on fascination, because you celebrated Asian film, and I want to know about another style of film that I know nothing about. That's I'm just being selfish at this point. But you are with ACTRA?
Yes. So I'm the president of the ACTRA Manitoba Branch Council.
Okay.
So every province has its own branch of ACTRA,
Okay.
which is the National Union for Film and Television Actors.
Yeah.
And as the president, I'm also sort of like the national counselor. So I'm on the national council for ACTRA as well, which deals with sort of like the film industry on a national level. But here we deal with it on, the provincial level.
Sure.
Just like what's happening in our city, what's happening in our province. And let's be honest, like most of our production is happening in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And around Winnipeg, right?
For sure.
So that's mostly of what we deal with. And mostly the council's job, I think, is kind of like to kind of
Council?
well, we talk about what's going on. The staff, they're very good at managing the day-to-day business of ACTRA, of like what needs to be done, because obviously we have collective bargaining agreements that we have to, that productions have to adhere to, and we have to just make sure that there's adherence to that, and there's all these other details that I won't go into, because
Sure, yeah.
it's a lot of like really interesting stuff. But
Any collective bargaining agreement sounds like a fun time.
yeah, but we work on a lot of like sort of like services to support members.
Okay.
So people who are the members of ACTRA, working actors, we kind of try to figure out how best to spend a portion of our budget on serving them, right? So either that's with training, or social events or networking events, things like that. Awards, we do an awards ceremony every 2 years where we hand out awards for best performances.
That was this year, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
It was
online?
earlier this
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have done it last year. It's usually in the fall every 2 years, but we had to cancel it, obviously,
Yeah.
right? So we just did it virtually this year, but we are planning for an in-person one for next year.
Nice.
And it's usually a great party. Like, you should definitely come out.
Yeah, I saw a little bit online this year, and I was like, "This looks like it'd be so much fun." Everybody just in the room enjoying each other's shit. Like those are great mixers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get a room full of actors, and it's gonna be interesting. that's for sure.
Cabaret, right? Like over the top, and yeah, that would that's a target-rich environment. ACTRA, just for the layman, if I'm not understanding, is the union for actors in Canada, right?
Yeah, for film and television actors specifically, right?
Okay.
Yeah. You can check out the website, actor.ca. I mean, like, if you want to know more about it, but you really don't really need to know more about it until you start working in film and television, kind of more on a regular basis, right? Because that's when it comes into play.
Yeah, is somebody is it the whole thing of like you do your hours, or you do like you build up your
Yep, you get
credentials
you get your credits, and then if you find yourself, starting to take it very seriously and you want to work more and you're working regularly, then ACTRA is sort of like what ACTRA membership is going to give you your benefits, contributions towards an RRSP. So, this is all the stuff
taking care of the actor.
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
end of the day.
Taking care of careers, right? Making sure that there's some security and something at the end of a long career where you can say, hey, I did this thing, and I spent my life, as an actor, and have something to show for it.
Yeah, that's what we all want at the end of the day. I'd love a little bit of protection, but there's no union in construction. So
there should be.
There should be a lot
there
of unions.
really should be.
Should be a union at Amazon first. That's the first one. If we can get a union at Amazon, then we can save a lot of people. You mentioned, is Fascination your first time putting on a festival outside of what you normally do?
Not really. So Fascination came out of Asian Heritage Month. So I worked with the Asian Heritage Society, which is the nonprofit organization that facilitates Asian Heritage Month activities. And Asian Heritage Month happens in May every year.
Okay.
And so they usually put on, a showcase at the Forks and like an opening launch event. And there's like other things kind of like happening throughout. We started an Asian film night in May for that specific purpose, just to for Asian Heritage Month, and it kind of just grew from there. And we decided to make it its own festival, and kind of programmed a multi-day series of events around celebrating Asian Canadian film and culture. And so there was a lot of local filmmakers who I knew were with Asian backgrounds. I mean, we have a huge Filipino population here, and
is it not the most outside of the Philippines? It's the most concentrated area.
I would say it's the second to Toronto.
Really?
Yeah.
That's still a big number.
Yeah. I think it's catching up because it's definitely growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I've gone to the festival they have over in the North End the last couple of years,
Mhm.
like the food festival. I fucking love that place.
Oh yeah, Food Trip.
Food, yeah.
Yeah.
Super good time. We love eating weird shit. I'll eat the weirdest, grossest stuff you can imagine.
Oh
I will
man.
not I have eaten the egg sack out of a pickerel on Lake Winnipeg, like right out of the water, just right in the back of my throat.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty brave. I haven't even done that, and I eat some weird shit.
But so what were some of the films that you guys picked for the festival this year?
Okay, so for this past festival, there was a let's see if I can remember the titles of them.
Let me bring it up. Their site.
Okay, so our opening night film was a film by a Japanese-Canadian director called Things I Do for Money.
Interesting.
And it's about two brothers, Japanese-Canadian brothers, who get kind of caught up in a bit of a crime scheme. But they're both also cello players. So
really?
Yeah, so there's a lot of cello playing in the movie, and it's a bit of a crime caper. So it's really interesting. Oh shoot! I want to do.
Where's the site? Just tell me where it is, and I'll bring it up, and then I can start reading stuff off to you here.
It's fascination.ca.
How do you spell it?
FASCINASIAN.ca. Yeah, a lot of people don't know how to spell fascination. Fascination, like just like
the word fascination.
Fascinate.
Yeah, no, that's a really great play on words. So you get a point now. Program. Here we go. I found it.
Yeah. So the programming for Fascination, I mean, like we want to focus on local first.
Yep.
So, and that's kind of historically what we've done. So there's a program of short films by local Manitoban, Asian Manitoban filmmakers, and then we brought in a few movies from outside, just a couple of ones like from prominent Canadian filmmakers, Asian Canadian filmmakers that that the messaging we thought was good, and then we actually even got one from ESPN, sort of like it's like a new Bruce Lee documentary called Be Water that
I heard about that.
Yeah, so they let us show it. It's available on cable if you have ESPN, so you could actually watch it anytime. But they let us kind of make it part of a festival as well, because we
Nice.
thought that'd be kind of a fun and interesting thing to showcase for people who don't have ESPN
Or
Right.
maybe need an easier way to get in to that style of film.
Yes, because
Right.
it is more highly accessible. Right?
Yeah, like if I don't know anything about Asian film, but I hear there's a Bruce Lee film, you're going to take the ignorant person who's not exposed to this and pull them in a little bit more than I guess you normally would.
Yeah, and this was being our first festival. We really wanted to just kind of make it super accessible, just to get the word out that it was there. So the tickets were, passes were dirt cheap. It was very affordable, very easy to access. Wasn't like an overly crowded program with too much stuff going on. But it went really well. Like everybody who involved was really happy with how it turned out. They were really impressed with sort of like how the marketing all looked, and it just seemed like it went without a hitch, right? So that was the kind of like the icing on the cake for us, because you work hard to like present something with
Sure.
with very little budget, and you just want people to appreciate it, right? And so they did, and so that's really great. And so we had some good sponsors and supporters that I think will come back next year, and we obviously will be increasing our scope. We're actually going to be doing a festival in Calgary as well.
Fucking A.
Yeah, so it'll be a Calgary and a Winnipeg kind of happening at the same time, and we're going to try some interesting things with live streaming, like from both cities at the
Yeah.
same time, to kind of like create a bit of an interesting online experience.
That's the trick, is doing one. Like, I remember when, and this was one of those things where it takes you off the screen and just in some way, some tangible thing to immerse your audience, to bring your attention up. Was Westworld did this thing where they created a fake website for the show.
Westworld?
Yeah.
Okay.
They made it like you could book your own trip,
Oh.
and you had your own tour guide, and clues from the website were embedded in the show, and clues from the show were embedded on the website. So it was like another
that is
avenue,
interesting.
right? And then you get an email every Monday morning after the show ended telling you what was going on in the park. It was another thing. So if you can create the 4D in immersive experience where you've got it on the screen, you've got it in person, you can hear it, but
Yeah.
then you're creating another level where you're watching it with another crowd.
Man, I love Westworld. I hope they come up with another season, but I hope they take it back to Westworld.
Okay, let's stop there for a second, because I'm a huge nut when it comes to this show. This is my blood and my water.
So what do you think of like how they left it?
Well, okay, I like where the real world application of data from the park is being used. I think that's a very interesting storyline, because we're there already.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not about corralling 50% of the planet into a way of thinking. Stepping outside of the park, I feel that they've abandoned some of the things that made season 1 and season 2 so good.
Yeah.
Because you were immersed in this world, and this world had all these weird things happen to it.
Yeah.
Then you get outside of that world, and now we're back to humans, and humans aren't as interesting. We want robots all the time. We want cybernetic, designed, fuckable, weird things that mess with everything that's right about how humans treat each other. We want to go back to that, because that was what was weird.
Yeah, I do appreciate the angle that it's like the birth of true AI, right? Like,
yes.
like that. It's, this is what happens, when you try to mess with it, and it becomes sentient, and it goes off on its own.
The idea that the memories were what created the sentient idea, and sort of like the Bernarnold questions,
yeah.
and who's real, who's not, like those kinds of things were so good. But I do feel that they went a little astray with this Rehoboam and this real world computer and all of this stuff that's like, yeah, okay, we've seen this in a story before, so it's not as interesting. But
right.
I think they've gone back to the park at the end of it, obviously. Like the park they were back in there for a minute, and then they came back out and went to the stupid supercomputer building, and you don't know if Charlotte's alive or not, if she's Charloris again or if she's not. Like there's lots of things there. I think they'll bring it back to the park. My hope is that it's been so long that they understand that going back to the park to give you who the Man in Black really is. I think the Man in Black has to go back to the park, and I think we need to find out if he's really a robot or if he's really a human. Do you think he's either? Do you have an idea of?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I don't think I was privy to like the rumors about him being either a robot or a human. I always thought he was human.
The reason I think this is because when you watched him read his profile, it was like somebody was realizing, it was like looking in a mirror as opposed to self-actualization. So it felt like he was looking at a different version of himself, which made me think that he's the robot version at some point in the show, and then he's the human version at other points. But what ends up happening is that he can't tell the difference, so they clone him. And this is his clone waking up.
Oh, okay.
Because I think when they showed that they tried to do it to the one guy who was the boss,
right,
and it didn't work, I think it's worked. We just haven't been privy to when he was turned on.
Right.
Like he's dead, but we haven't seen the middle chunk of Man in Black dying to become a robot. We've just seen Man in Black as a human at portions of the show. We've seen Man in Black maybe as a robot.
Right.
The last season will show us when he was changed, and then how we leave him as human or robot.
Yeah. See, here's the thing, like with J.J. Abrams shows. I mean, like I love it. I love him. He's so ambitious, and then he kind of like writes himself into a corner.
Like Lost?
Yeah, exactly like Lost.
Yeah, the writer's strike really killed a lot of momentum, I think, for a lot of shows around that time.
Yeah, for sure. Heroes
took a nosedive.
Exactly.
And
I was on board, and then like afterwards I was like, nope, this is not the same show.
Exactly. And it's almost like, did they not bring back the original writers? Like they just went and hired ones who could, not should. But yeah, no, the first episode of Lost, when all of a sudden you see a polar bear running through the jungle, I was like, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
But then when we got into life and death and alternate time island, I love the time island. But then when we found out at the end that they've been dead since they got on the spoiler alert, that this is all about an afterlife.
Right.
It's great of J.J. Abrams to do that, but using that island as the medium was just a little confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyways, what were we talking about?
We were talking. I was going to ask you the question of who are some Asian filmmakers or Asian films that I or people, the listener, should be aware of to start exposing themselves to some other shit. So who's because in North America it's so like, here's your 6 directors, here's your 6 studios. This is the stuff that like it's the sad thing about the news. The news in America talks about America. If you want to learn what America's really like, though, or Canada, you have to listen to somebody else's news to understand how we look to the world. So the only way, unless I travel to China or Japan or Vietnam or any of these places that are Asian epicenters, I might not know. So who should we watch for? Who's somebody that's...
Well, okay, so let me just clarify something a little bit here for Fascination. There are Asian film festivals in the world, and there's a lot of Asian cinema. We don't really focus on that right now.
Okay.
We're trying to focus on the Asian diaspora storytellers. So
I don't know that word. You're gonna have.
So the diaspora is basically like the movement represents the movement of people outside of their sort of like traditionally ethnic home country. Right?
Okay.
So like of I am part of the diaspora, right? My parents immigrated here from China in like the 70s, and so we are part of the diaspora, and like our stories are going to be very different from people growing up in China,
Yes.
right? Because it's the experience of living outside of in a society where you're, the minority.
See, that's the
and
ignorant in me. That's because that's not where my mind goes. But that's a very interesting point.
So a lot of the films that are coming out actually from Asian filmmakers in Canada or the United States or Australia or like all these other sort of English-speaking countries, or even the non-English-speaking countries, but they all deal with sort of like their stories of being like the outsider or like kind of trying to find their place in society where they sometimes don't feel quite at home.
Yeah.
And I'll mention Islands because it's a movie that is coming out. It's out now, but I mean like in the festival circuit. And Reel Asian International Film Festival in Toronto is screening this film right now, and we are one of their partners, and so we're promoting this film, and it's basically about a sort of like a middle-aged Filipino man who's kind of awkward, and he's trying to kind of like find his way in society a little bit. And so I haven't watched it myself, so I can't tell you any more than that. But I highly recommend you check it out because it's garnered some pretty good buzz. It premiered at South by Southwest in Austin.
Oh, that's a really good start.
And being showcased as the opening film for Reel Asian is also a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
They're definitely the largest Asian film festival in Canada, and they also, their programming ranges into the international as well. So like they do showcase Asian cinema sometimes, but a lot, there's a lot of great stuff coming out from Asian Canadians that is, a different perspective. It's probably going to be in English, so a little bit accessible. Yeah.
No, okay, great. Like I love. I would. That's not where my brain goes, and I feel bad about that. But that's very interesting that it's about the story that they're experiencing outside of their country and not so much going back to the style that's done in the country. Is that my understanding of the diaspora?
Well, that's definitely like what we want to highlight now, because the part of the goal, I think, of Fascination is to sort of bridge the gap of understanding. And if we can combat, do our part to sort of like combat the ignorance that creates racism, to be honest.
Yeah.
We would that's kind of one of our goals is to use culture, use media, use films to help people to relate to each other.
Yeah. Just because we don't look the same doesn't mean we don't share the same idea or story.
I mean, we've discovered a lot in common tonight.
Yes,
right?
we have.
Just in this 2-hour conversation. So
that's the best part of doing this, man, is the education and the conversation that comes from it. We're approaching the end here, and I just want to get a couple more in before I send you packing. You've gone to Vancouver. You went out in BC, did everything out there, come back home. What is it about Manitoba film? What is it about this province that is just, because everybody says a couple of the same things. There's a running theme of everybody on this show, but they all have a little bit of a different, footnote on it. So,
yeah, I think that once you've had enough experience and seen enough of this industry, and I've done quite a bit of traveling, you kind of can predict or at least see the patterns. And when I moved back, I mean, like one of the things that I promised people, like I said to people all the time, actually, you just watch, like this industry is going to boom here, like production wise, because the environment was just ripe for it. You could tell, the tax credits, the just the landscape, the amount of talent that was here, the amount of availability of the people that were here. It was kind of prime for the boom that we did get. And so over the past 5 years, I would say our production is just like doubled, or quadrupled even. We used to get like 3 to 5 productions a year, and now there's like at least 3 or 5 at one time.
Yeah.
Going on at all times.
Yeah.
And you work in this industry, so too. It's busy.
It is, and I argued at work. I was like, there's a market here that I know the company I work for is not exposed to in Manitoba. They're exposed to it in Vancouver, obviously, and in the epicenters, but they weren't here. And I was really like, this industry needs help if it's going to survive, and nobody's really paying attention to it from a vendor perspective in the industry, the construction rental industry. So I just wanted for you guys to have somebody who gave a shit. And like I'm unique only in the way that I'm a movie nerd working for a company that has the ability to get involved with movies. So I was like, I'm going to use everything at my disposal to make sure that this industry in this province has a thing. And this was before the show. I'm just a fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. Like I remember we'd get one and I'd be so fucking excited. And now I'm like, shit, who are you with? Like, what production are you on? I'm sorry, I can't remember where you're shooting today. These are the problems I'm having because there's so many going on at once.
Yeah,
and that's not a problem, but
it's a good problem.
It's a great problem. It's a first world problem.
It's a growth problem, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that across the board when it comes to like crews. The training of the crews, and so like that's why On Screen Manitoba just hired Tyson Karen to be a workforce development person because we recognize there's a need for good skilled people who can work in various departments, and it's not easy to just come in green and do it. It's not enough time in a day to like kind of learn on the job. You have to basically know what you're doing in order to come in and not screw things up majorly.
Yeah, eventually someone's going to look at you one day and you're going to be the one with your hand on the button, and it's like, are you prepared? Are you ready?
Yeah.
And you're right. The great thing about On Screen and Film Training Manitoba is those places are pushing for education and pushing for safety and pushing for understanding and trying to make you be all you can be, the best you can be on a set here.
Yeah. Well, we all that's kind of like what the festival does too. Is like I consider it a support organization. Because it does cater to the emerging filmmaker. It does kind of like have a bit of a professional development slant to it. There's opportunities there for young filmmakers and people who want to get into it to have that experience, that good experience where it'll spark more interest, or it'll spark their curiosity to take some more courses and to figure out how to do this or how to do that, if they see a really cool film and using a really cool technique, and so it is part of a bigger system of developing the Canadian film landscape, and it's kind of unique to Canada because in the States a lot of the same kind of like funding streams, stuff like that for independent film aren't available to people. It's much more it's all private money, right? Whereas here there is actually like public funds for it and foundations and like lots of support for the arts.
Yeah, no, and that's what happens. If you plant the seeds that allow the talent to grow, then you'll have an epicenter of fucking fantastic people in Manitoba who do really good work.
Yeah.
and like in every range, like all the way to the feature film and all the way down to the 5-minute short. Like you know what? Like you look through history and you look at the amount of just creative talent that comes out of this city, musicians, artists, filmmakers, painters, actors. Like I don't know if it's because we're the true center. Sorry, Toronto. Physically we are. But like, I don't know what it is, but there's just something about this province that causes everybody to just to work a little harder or try something different or play in a different sandbox. And it somehow works.
I think it's the isolation.
Yeah. Landlocked, nothing else to do.
Exactly. We get really bored.
6-month winters, cold as fuck.
So we build like amazing setups in our basement.
Yeah, we do. That's what ends up happening. Pandemic allows you to do shit like this. Anyways, this is our time, man. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an honor for me and a lot of fun chatting with you. It's been great to get to know you.
Yeah, dude. We'll have you back on for a less serious conversation. We'll have some fuckery for you to have a good time with sometime.
Oh, great! And I can switch from tea to something else.
Yes, exactly. A little stronger. We'll put Ian over here. We'll get two of you in a room together.
Oh, good. Ian's my boy.
Ian's the shit, man. I love that guy so much. We met like this.
Nice.
I said I want to interview you about Strong Son. because I was crying by the end of it. I was like,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is one of the most moving pieces of cinema I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, do you want to do this with us? Like, we don't know you. It'd be cool if you did. And he was like, yeah. And then, once, twice, 3 times. Next thing you know, he's got a sweater and he's standing up at Comic-Con with us. And I was like, I'm really glad you're here, man. Like,
Oh, that's good.
this was
Yeah, no, Ian's great, and we screened Strong Son at the last Fascination, and Gimli too, I think. Yeah, and we pretty sure we did. There's so many movies. I lose track.
There's so much. You're right. And
Yeah.
being grown up on a media, babysitter, like I understand what you were doing when you were growing up. The TV was the babysitter. It was, and there's nothing. We're better for it. I'm more aware. I'm more for what I like doing and watching. I think it was really a good part of my upbringing.
Well, it was a part of my upbringing, so I can't say anything else other than it seems to have worked out. I can't, you can't go through life resenting anything. Do I wish I was, that I played hockey as a kid? Maybe. It would have maybe gave me more friends in school, but who cares?
Yeah,
it's fine.
Well, Allan, thank you again so much. This has been a pleasure. Is there anything that people should know about? Anything you want to plug before I let you go?
Plug, eh?
It's not a have to.
No.
All right.
There's nothing going on. I mean, everything's gonna come out. The festivals will happen next year. And they'll happen when they happen.
The links to both of them will be in the show notes. So even
Great.
if this stops, when someone trips across it and it's time for the festival again in 2022, they'll hear about it. They'll know where to go. So
Awesome.
see if we can push as many people to both of those as we can. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another Reel Debaters production. I've learned from better people that I'll just shut up now and send you on your way. But support the show. Remember to subscribe. That's the easiest thing to do. And it's free. You don't have to do anything else. You just hit subscribe. We show up each and every week, and then you just get really cool, interesting people, cooler than us. I've been Michael Petro. This has been... That's what you're saying.
Allan Wong.
I got to tell people about that part more often. Ladies and gentlemen, watch all the movies. We are gone.